morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever the case may be, wherever you're tuning in to RedFellas, wherever you're tuning in from to watch RedFellas on a Sunday morning, afternoon, evening, wherever the case may be. You're all very welcome. Thank you very much for tuning in. Thank you very much for smashing that like button, which I know you guys have already would have done because you already know the rules. You don't need me to repeat them, but I will repeat them again and again and again. Thank you very much for joining us. Joining me, Evan. We've got Steve in the building. We've got Cav in the building. We have flip flops. A certain Mr. Cav said, "Do we really have to go live?"
You're gonna out me already.
I'm gonna out you already. Luckily, no one responded. Everyone stayed calm. And then at the end, we said, "Really? You still want to go live?" We want to go live. I'm not going to lie to you. We done a preview yesterday, and for one last time, guys, I thought I'm going to bring the war hat out. I brought the war hat out yesterday. I said, you know what? Anfield's got one last hurrah. Klopp has got one last hurrah. This team has got one last hurrah. And what I meant by that was this era, this Klopp, this squad of players, this season. And for the first 25 minutes, I switched the hat round because I wanted to look like a clown, because that's how Liverpool were playing. Arsenal were making me look like clowns. So I sat like this for the first 25, 30 minutes. But as we're going to get into it, from somewhere, the depths of Anfield, the mythical Anfield, we raised a battle cry and made a game of it, let's just say. People, this show is sponsored by yourfutcard.com. As you guys already know, I haven't shared screen, so I'm going to do that right now as we speak. Make sure you go and check out yourfutcard.com for your footballing banners, prints, footballing cards. Get everything you need from these guys. They've got you. Select your design, select the shape, your your skills, your talents, anything you want. They have got some amazing new prints out. They've actually got, and it's been sent out to me, I will have it for you guys next week. They've actually got a Bobby Firmino one, which is sensational. So as a parting gift, a remembrance of Bobby Firmino, I'm sure you guys will want to have one, especially after today. But yeah, go check these guys out. If you don't understand how it works, where it says chat with us, you chat with them. You ask them anything you want, and they answer you instantly. They also ship worldwide. Go check them out. If you type in RedFellas 15, you get 15% off after everything else as well on top of that. So go check out yourfutcard.com. Use the code for 15% off. Ladies and gentlemen, how are you doing after that? I've had a difficult fast today. I opened it up with some food, tried to digest the game, tried to digest the food. It's not easy trying to digest both at the same time, Evan.
It's definitely difficult. You know, it sounds like an absolute roller coaster of things going on, and we were treated to an absolute roller coaster of a match. I said a game of two halves before we went live. You said, maybe it might even be more complicated than that. And sure enough, as we'll get into, it certainly was. I think calling it a game of two halves does little justice to the nuance, the ins and outs of the game, the contentious nature of certain calls, the contentious nature of certain referees, even. And I'm sure we're gonna get into it. I'm a bit confused myself. I'm still a bit dazed, still organizing my thoughts. So I'm glad I have you guys to do it with.
Yeah, look, no better set of lads to go through with it and talk our way through it. We've been through quite a roller coaster this season, haven't we, Steve? We asked. I don't know what you asked. I asked for some pride, some joy, some spirit, all of the things that are a given normally, but they seem to be lacking of recent times. So I just wanted that back. We got that back, but it didn't start off like that, did it?
No, and the season, with, as we've all said and you said today, of lots and lots of disappointments. I kind of still want one sort of show of faith, show of ability, show of passion, show of intensity.
Life.
Or,
Show
yeah,
life.
show what we've come to believe our team can do. And yeah, it didn't start like that. Thankfully, it finished like that. I'm still sat here wanting to press the fast forward button and get to the end of the season and do the bits and pieces we need to do to be competitive again. We'll get into it, but there's a lot to say about the start of that football match. There's also a lot to say about how we finished it too. I think we've seen a little bit of everything today, and I look forward to getting into it.
Gandahar sends a first super chat of the night. He says the second half performance I was dying for since forever. Pretty much all of us, Cav, like we said. Steve's right. I tweeted in the season of disappointments, can't remember word for word. Those tweets come to me very momentarily. Flashes of genius don't always come. You know, I have to go back and read them. I can't remember what I wrote. Probably semi asleep, whatever, when I said it. But I said I asked Anfield to rise one last time, Klopp to rise, everything. It was, but on the back of the preview when I was speaking to the Arsenal fans, shout out Babs, Dan, and our very own Bilal, of course, Dan Potts, Babs, and Bilal were on the preview show. And I suspected and I kind of guessed that the Anfield atmosphere wouldn't be as raucous, as volatile, as toxic as it would have been for a Man City or a Man United, because Arsenal, I don't know about you, but Arsenal bring a different type of rivalry. And we're going to get into what instigated it again, possibly the blow up of the game. But I thought it's going to be the kind of start that it actually turned out, but I didn't expect it to be that bad.
Yeah, I think the game is, and for a lot of people, a bit symbolic because of how we sort of identify as a team and how we've played over the past few years. You know, high intensity, you know, pressing up the pitch, good passing football, you know, a front line that's arguably been the best forward three in the world, say. And there's a lot of sort of similarity with this Arsenal team to what we were once like. And a lot of people thought that maybe it was like, not the passing of the torch, but, you know, maybe our downfall and their rise, you could see they were sort of taking our place, if you like. And this game sort of comes at a time where we're not in a title race, and they obviously are. And, you know, I didn't want it to just be a procession for them. You know, they just come here and they really prove that they're what we were last year and the years gone by. I wanted it to show that actually, no, we're different. This is Liverpool and this is Anfield. You can't replicate what we have. You know, this is unique to us. And I didn't, and much like you, Grizz, I didn't think we would get that from the off because of how the season's gone, and because Liverpool fans, especially those that go to the match, they're intelligent people. You know, they know that this team are capable, but have let us down so often, and you don't know what you're really going to get. So it's very difficult to just, you know, have blind faith and really get yourself up and cheer them as much as you should, because there is that thing in the back of your mind going, well, I'm not too sure what I'm going to get here. So the start was kind of as I expected, actually. You know, the crowd needed something to get them going, and without the crowd, it would come down to simply a football match. You know, who was the better team and who was better at playing football, and quite simply at this moment in time, that is Arsenal. So the start, I wanted us to come out the blocks, fire in, and, you know, put them on the back foot and get into their heads early and put that doubt in their heads early, but it didn't happen. And I'm sure we'll come on to the first goal. It sort of summed up the two state of teams at this point in time. You're
right. The opposite happened, Ev. Whereas we're talking about putting doubts in their head, the title race, we already know from first-hand experience. Big up Ash. He says, first 35 minutes, I thought it would be a 3-0 clinic. Yep. And then Ben, big up Ben, sends in a super chat. He says, second half was vintage Klopp ball. Mate, continue. Absolutely, my friend. The opposite happened, and it's so true because I've been speaking on this Arsenal team on a couple of platforms where the Arsenal platforms, the Arsenal channels that have asked me to come on and said, "Do you see similarities between you lot back in the early days and us lot?" And I actually do, and I actually did. The fast start, the ability to keep teams penned in, the ability to make the other team make mistakes, and then capitalizing on them. To elite, fast, goal scoring forwards, wingers, stroke, whatever you want to call them. The young Mane, the young Salah, replicate them with Saka and Martinelli, the Gabriel Jesus, the Bobby Firmino. The similarities are all there stylistically as well. Everything that Evan wanted, Cav saying wanted to put in their heads because they're in a title race, and we want to put doubts in their head like, oh shit, we could blow it here. They put the doubts in our head, and we've got plenty of insecurities right now, and they made us look as insecure and be insecure as we were and looked.
Yeah, absolutely. And especially when you look at the nature in which they quickly impose themselves on the match, as effective and as clinical as Arsenal were, and all those, wonderful qualities that you just listed, reminiscent of Liverpool teams at the start of the Klopp era. I don't think we made them work particularly hard for the start that they had. And it got me thinking, whether you're a team at the top of the table or a team towards the bottom of the table, Liverpool have not forced teams to work very hard or do anything really extraordinary to stamp their will upon the game. And I have nothing but great things to say about this Arsenal team, because like you, I see the similarities and I see the admirable qualities and the admirable players and profiles they have in there. But it was too easy for all of Arsenal's great qualities. It was too easy for them to make us shoot ourselves in the foot. As you say, Liverpool reek of their own insecurities right now, and you could feel it in the stadium. Like I was saying before we went live, it was palpable. It's not always easy to hear the murmurs of discontent through your TV speakers, but today I absolutely could hear it. You could tell it's the players don't really back themselves, and the crowd sort of gets a hint of that, and then it becomes a wary and standoffish relationship. So absolutely, we reeked of our own insecurities, and Arsenal were quick to exploit that.
Yeah, exactly. Just like we used to be as well. Amir sends in a super chat, says, "See, Senor, pass the water, Bobby, and he will score." We most definitely will speak about Senor, but I guess intriguing these days. Still, we come to the lineups and sort of trying to second guess right now. Like, it's long gone now, trying to work out who out of the 5 forwards is going to start. Well, 4 out of the 5. We know Bobby's going to be used as a substitute. Mohamed Salah, usually guaranteed to start, doesn't start the last game. So therefore, there was a bit of a doubt and see how we're going to set up and plan out. And then obviously the forever debate, which won't be resolved until the summer, about the midfield. What combination do we go with? Who do we go with? And possibly there was a dilemma, I don't know about you, or a conversation that you was having with your mates and fellow like-minded Liverpool fans about possibly Gomez instead of Trent. Did you have these sort of debates and headaches in your head before the game?
Very much. In fact, the last one probably being the most poignant one as well. Would it be Trent? Would it be Gomez? Gomez was a orthodox right back of a certain standard against Chelsea. We know we'd be getting hurt in the Trent position. Jones in midfield came as a little bit of a surprise to me. What that boy is brave, and I commend him for this. He never not shows for the ball. He doesn't hide. He backs himself. He's come out this week and said, "Look, I don't care who Liverpool side. I'm a confident boy. I'll knuckle down and get on with it, and we'll see what's what." And he's backed that up today by showing for the ball all of the time. Still, maybe for me, not quite of the quality you need to push for a title with a Curtis Jones in a midfield 3.
Fair enough. Yeah.
But unfortunately, you could say the same with most of them. So this season, anyway. So I don't think it's beyond the realms of realism to give the lad a run. And he didn't play badly against Chelsea. None of them played great. He did okay today. He did okay. And then obviously, there's an emerging thing with Darwin at the moment. Is I don't think Darwin plays enough games, and there's obviously something there. And he's had this cut on his foot. We're led to believe that didn't heal as quickly as you'd like. This is a guy that you kind of want in your side, because we do need to remind ourselves tomorrow is the anniversary of a year since Diogo Jota last scored. And for a centre forward, that's difficult to accept. And you need more from him. I know he was pivotal today in the opening goal, and we'll get to that. But you kind of need all of your sharp implements on the pitch to cause damage to your opposition. And I don't see enough from Diogo, because if you look at Diogo's game is about getting on the end of things and scoring goals. We've all come to love him for that. Without that, there isn't too much more to look at, to be fair. He's not a Bobby. He's not a Mo. He's a different type of player. He'll still make the runs and he'll still cause problems with the runs. But when you go and spend the kind of money you spent on Darwin Núñez, he's missing too many games for me. This is you want your number 9, you want your focal point of your attack, the guy that's going to stretch people, the guy that's going to harass people, the guy that's going to terrorise people with that pace and direct play. You need him week in, week out. We're not able to rely on him at the moment. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's something psychological or something physiological. I don't know, but there is a problem there. And going into the game today, I wasn't convinced that Diogo Jota was going to find the back of the net. It's a year tomorrow. Again, I say you don't win titles with Curtis Jones playing in the midfield 3. You don't win titles with any of our midfield 3 at the moment. But if you've got a centre forward that hasn't scored for a year, you have to have other options available. And right now we don't. And that was a concern for me.
Cav, anything that you want to echo in terms of the team selection? Curtis Jones. I mean, I'm personally agree with Steve about Curtis Jones wasn't bad. Curtis Jones also didn't impose himself enough as well. So I was left with Curtis Jones. It's difficult for him. Of course, he's been out ages, but every opportunity these guys get, they have to take and grasp, because they know what's around the corner.
Yeah.
They know. They know. Every Tom, Dick and Harry knows we're going to buy midfield players. So therefore, if Jurgen Klopp has trusted him away to Chelsea, home to Arsenal, it suggests Jurgen Klopp thinks he's a good football player. And then it's up to Curtis Jones to grasp that opportunity. The Diogo Jota debate, yeah, it's an intriguing one. It's an interesting one. It needs a more of a deep dive than for me to sort of just give an opinion on the... I think he needs time to try to find some form of rhythm after 4 or 5 months out. But it's a debate, nevertheless. I accept that. But overall, the rest of the team, the Núñez one, yeah. I mean, fill me in if you guys think he should have played or he shouldn't have started. But I agreed with the Trent playing.
Yeah. I think the thing, just quickly on Jones, he doesn't really do much in the game, but you can kind of see all the simple things he does well, why he would be selected by Klopp, because he's kind of a safe option. The thing that's disappointing with me is he does actually find himself in advanced positions at time, and you think, okay, that's where you've done well in previous years in the underage groups and for England and stuff, but then he never really seems to produce anything. And I find myself a little bit frustrated with him in the final third, but that's fine because we've come to expect that from our midfield, really, although it's not right. The Jota one is going to be difficult for him because we have options, especially with Luis Diaz coming back, where I agree with Steve. He's not scoring goals. He needs to bring more to the game, and he's going to find himself as a bench option. If not, maybe not this summer, but possibly maybe next, being moved on, because there are going to be guys in this team like Diaz, like Núñez, like Gakpo, like Salah, that will demand a starting place. I think they'll be playing well enough to sort of deserve it as well. So he's got to start, putting in some better performances and start finding the back of the net. Ultimately, he's a funny player to try and describe because we'll come on to the penalty bit. That's kind of him. He's just a bit of a pest, but then you can't really pick out attributes that he's really good at, to be honest. So he's a funny one. Trent one, I agree with, because we needed some creativity in the team, and he's our most creative player, in my opinion. The other one was maybe Thiago, I thought he might have had enough training to sort of come back into the side from the off. But obviously, the medical team would have assessed it and thought he could only do the remaining half an hour. So that's fine, you know. Yeah, the rest, maybe they could have gone with an extra forward, but maybe the injury to Nunes kind of affected that decision as well. So, I mean, the lineup, it's our first choice back five, isn't it? And then, you know, the rest of the team is probably what we have right now.
Ev, if we go about sort of the opening, whatever, what a horrific start. I don't know what your version of that first goal is. Can you share it, please, with the rest of us?
Just a bit of a comedy of errors, really. You know, things that never reflect well on you as a defensive unit. Robertson initially tries to track a run from Saka that's going out wide.
Does he slip? Robertson slips or something, right?
Yeah, Saka hits the brakes and goes the other direction, which causes Robertson to slip, which initially creates the dangerous situation in the half space. There's then a you know, they pass it against Virgil's heel. It comes off his heel, and then it falls right back to Martinelli, and Robertson comes across to try to, you know, make up for his lapse in concentration, and he can't. So it's just a bit, like I said, that there's just nothing miraculous about what Arsenal had to do there. I mean,
it always seemed so easy and simplistic, and suddenly there's a goal.
Yeah. Suddenly Liverpool are opened up. Someone slips and they're opened up, and then it comes off Van Dijk's heel. So there's an element of fortune to the goal for Arsenal, absolutely. But they do well to take the chance. But again, from our point of view, there's just, again, we're just not forcing them to work hard for it. And in general, you know, you look at the opportunities Arsenal would go on to have throughout the game where they actually had to work for them. They didn't really put any of those away. We actually defended those situations pretty well. So it goes back to what I've been saying in previous streams, sort of about the game script of a football match. You know, how much better off would Liverpool be with the same personnel, with the same tactical issues, if they could just avoid getting scored on inside 20 minutes, largely of their own, you know, by their own sword. So yeah, it's a bit of a microcosm of our season. That first goal, especially, just nothing terribly impressive about it. Just a bit shambolically crap from us.
It was, you know what? Sorry, it frustrated me, that first goal, because that is a typical Arsenal goal. And if you watch the documentary last year, I think it is, that come out, Arteta specifically did a piece on how he wants his fullbacks to play the ball into his forwards. And he specifically pointed out a situation on the right-hand side where Ben White, he passed it into Saka's feet, and he ripped him for it. He said, no, I want it inside of him. I want you to play the ball in field so Saka can already be running onto the ball, facing goal and coming in field. And that's exactly the pass that he played. And then you see Saka pick it up and then put it onto Odegaard. And if you pause that goal at the point at which Odegaard picks up the ball, he actually has two men out wide as well. So yes, he picks out the pass to Martinelli, which he goes on to score. But he also could have played it wide to two other free Arsenal players that could have gone and scored themselves. So they had so many options in the build-up in play. But if Liverpool had done their homework, they would have seen that that's the pattern that they'd go for. And that's what's frustrating. It's preventable. I know Robertson does slip, but he was already a yard or two off Saka anyway. And he should, like I say, if you prepare for the game well enough and do your homework on Arsenal, you probably could have prevented that situation.
Some were blaming Virgil for the first goal. I don't know. I'm going to have to look at it again and again and again, maybe, to attribute blame to one person. I think it's probably a combination, Steve. But the second goal, I couldn't believe what I was seeing or what I'd just seen. So the play develops down, of course, our right again, as it always usually tends to do. A cross comes in from Martinelli. It's a brilliant pinpoint cross. Okay, fair. Okay, not a pin. It shouldn't be pinpoint, but it turns out to be pinpoint because there's only one man in the box, and I believe there was two centre backs, or at least two defenders. One of them was Virgil van Dijk, totally unmarked in the 30th minute of the game, like it's the 85th minute of the game. It's just, I don't know how to explain it apart from slandering all involved.
Well, I'll give you a word: pathetic. That sums it up. Pathetic. So you're right. It is good play down our right, their left, and that's a common theme. Nothing new there. We see that week in, week out. Ball's put in the box. Van Dijk's starting position when they're building down that wing isn't bad. He's actually got Jesus in his sights. Then for some reason he does the thing that you try and teach your kids not to do. He gets kind of drawn towards the ball, and he takes up a position going towards the front stick, and Jesus just stands still. We often speak about the fact that Diogo Jota creates himself space by not moving. It's exactly what Gabriel Jesus did. And then you're quite right when you reference the second defender, which is Andy Robertson, but he's too far away to do anything, and he wouldn't expect Virgil to take the position. What he's going to do is he's going to be alive to bits and pieces. So if they have a confrontation over the ball and it breaks, it's his job to sort it. But Virgil sells everybody down the river by moving towards the ball. It's pathetic for an international captain, a player of that stature, of that ability, that we've quite rightly lauded as arguably one of the greatest centre-backs in Premier League history, and in Liverpool's. That's really poor defending. And I don't know whether it comes as a lack of confidence, because there's no confidence in the back five at all at the moment. I don't know whether it comes from that. But if you want to rebuild your confidence, you have to start with the basics. And the basics are, you don't leave your man unmarked. You don't go towards the ball. You don't get drawn towards the ball. Konate is doing that for us as it is anyway, with lack of experience and youthful exuberance. This is a 31-year-old cultured, high IQ centre-back that's gone to crap this season. It's all gone to pot this season. It isn't helped, and this goal has no reflection on that. But it isn't helped by the fact he can't rely on a screen from the midfield this season. And I just think all the goals, if you look back on them, all the goals that the back four have conceded because they've been overrun and they've been dug out, levelled out for criticism, because they've had runners against them. They wear away, they chip away at you over a period of time, you end up with no confidence. Football is as much a confidence game as anything else. When we're confident, we're unbelievable. When we're not confident, we're really quite vulnerable. And that includes the big man at the back. Between now and the start of the season, Virgil needs to have a real strong and hard look at himself and recognise that this is a shadow of the man that everybody touted as the best centre-back ever. Look, I don't buy the rival thing. Oh, you can't say that because he's having a bad season. Every footballer known to man has a bad season. It's how you respond to that. Because he wasn't this bad last season. He wasn't brilliant Virgil van Dijk. He wasn't this bad. So, in answer to your question, Grizz, you can put the whole goal under the umbrella of pathetic. My abiding memory of that goal would be Alisson Becker to the inside of the net to lift himself up with his head in his hands, absolutely dejected. Here we go again. You know, we talk about what happens in the close season if we don't get Champions League football. There are some lads in our squad that deserve it. He would be one of them. It probably, price-wise, nobody could afford to buy him anyway in the current market. But do you know what? He's got to be looking at this saying, I deserve better. Because the reality is he does deserve better. And he's got players in front of him that have been 90 minutes away, 180 minutes away from footballing immortality. The drop-off is absolutely staggering. And it's just about doing your basics. It's just about not being overly arrogant that says, I don't need to think about what I'm doing because I'm so good. I can just drift through the game and cover all the eventualities, do the simple things right, the more complicated things take care of themselves. And we're not seeing that from Virgil at all at the moment.
That second goal goes in at 30 minutes, roughly, I think. Hold on, we've got it here. Ev's been so kind to bring it up. Yeah, around the 29th minute. I guess that's we'll have a small interlude from match events and go through some super chats. So 30 minutes, because at that stage, I want to get you guys' opinions. And the crowd was dead. We were dead. And then obviously we always look for something to spark us, and something did spark us. Gander has sent in a super chat, says, Jude McAllister Nunes, one centre back, and we can dream again. I think today, very quickly, Cav, before we get back into the super chats, today did show that we're not as finished as some think, and we may not be as close as some think. But what we do know is reinforcements are needed, and they will change. They will change the way we play.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, not only quality, but just fresh legs, you know, new sort of men in the squad, new ideas, all of these things just to remotivate. Because I think as that second half shows, a lot of this is mental. You know, Steve talks about confidence. We just need a freshness in the squad. It needs to be exciting again. You feel like the season's been a lot of a drag, and I dare I say this, I think a lot of players are probably getting a bit bored. You know, it's terrible to think that, but like that could be the case with a professional footballer.
But it's normal human behavior. It's nature. We are humans. We will get bored. We will get sort of, the message won't have the same effect on us psychologically. That is all part and parcel of psychology. You know, so you're right. It's just a refresh. New Beats didn't like Jones. I think he says Jones was always a half a second too slow in releasing the ball. Gandhar says, should have Bobby have started tonight in the midfield to control? Maybe, could have been. We know he likes playing against the Arsenal. Hindsight, we're trying to mold Gakpo into the new Bobby, so I understand that aspect as well. Mo says, another monster game for Ugarte. Evan, we need him. Evan needs him. Liverpool needs him. We need him.
Yeah.
Samuel says, not a Liverpool fan, but Trent absolutely cooked their left back. Never seen a right back dictate a football game. He is special indeed. Very, very kind words for an opposition fan there, talking about our right back. Maybe it's a good time to start about our right back, I guess, because wasn't he the one who instigates the altercation with Xhaka, I believe, initially? And then Xhaka gets up and I think attempts an elbow at someone else, culminating in a yellow card on the 41st minute, I believe. Trent also gets, of course, it is Trent. At this stage, Trent was having one of those games, Ev. You know what I mean by one of those games. We don't need to get into it. He was having one of those games. But I think the sheer, tell me guys what you think, but for me, it was the sheer embarrassment. He showed me a drive, an anger, a motivation, and a hunger that I want to see from Trent for the rest of the season and for the rest of his career. Because after that, I liked that version of Trent. So I thank Mr. Xhaka for not only instilling that fire in his belly, but 40,000 bellies and 10, 11 bellies that were on the Liverpool side as well.
Yeah, it definitely seemed to wake up the crowd and the players as well. And as we know, the relationship between the players and their home supporters it's a two-way street. You know, the players have to give a little to the crowd, and the crowd have to give a little in return. It's very much a yin-yang type relationship. So that definitely seemed to kickstart the yin-yang relationship within Anfield. Trent, you know, not very effective in the first half. You know, as we're gonna get into, he was in the first phase of play, he was playing a different position entirely to the position he usually plays out wide as a fullback. But the press of Arsenal was sort of nullifying that as well. Trent couldn't really dictate the game from the middle, as Sam pointed out he would go on to do. So, you know, this is definitely what you want to see. You know, he's, you know, Scouse born, one of our own. You know, the crowd will get behind things like that, as we all will. I mean, that moment got me out of my chair for the first time in the game, where I was just like, yeah, you know, screw him. You know, let him know that that's not okay. So it's a very human reaction by Trent and a very human reaction by the crowd. People not only just the players seemingly waking up and realizing this is not acceptable, but the crowd sort of, you know, just based on the collective body language of the people that got to their feet in that moment to berate Granit Xhaka. It was not just an act of protest against Xhaka for, you know, doing something daft, but also just sort of a crowd releasing a season's worth of frustration, and this galvanizes the players, and we go on to have our first, I guess you could say, positive spell within the game, where you start to see recognizable, repeatable patterns of play, and lo and behold, we capitalize.
Yeah, it's strange, isn't it, Cav? We were just talking about it before we went live in terms of how did we get back into the game? Why can't we always do that? Why can't we start like that, like we used to? So many questions. We don't really have the answers. Otherwise, we'd be geniuses and we'd be working at the very highest level. But what is your layman's sort of explanation?
I tell you, after Arsenal scored that second goal, they started to toy with us. We were 2 yards off them, couldn't even get close to putting a challenge, didn't look like getting the ball back. And to be honest, it was getting a little bit embarrassing, you know, and you could feel the sort of tension in the crowd. And we were nearing half time. And I was thinking, actually, this might be the first time that this team gets booed off. You know, it was looking that bad at some stage. And one thing that I think the Xhaka sort of incident come at a perfect time, because they were popping it around and they were treated. It was a bit like boys against men, you know, at one point.
It was a continuation of the City game for me.
Yeah.
I thought, oh shit, this is going to show the distance and the levels between Man City and Arsenal and us right now. Like consecutive games. I mean, obviously the Chelsea game was in between. That was a pile of shit. But the two good teams, it shows you how far we would have had a different outlook if they continued to play like that and beat us 4-5.
Yeah.
But we were able to raise something and bring back something.
I think once they started popping it around and stuff, I mean, this team, they probably know they're not playing well. They know they're not been at it. You know, they've probably accepted a lot of that. But one thing they won't accept is their pride, you know, and being hit and being embarrassed and being bullied in their own backyard. Let's you know, make no bones about it. So when they were popping it around, I always thought like our tempers would have raised a little bit. I always thought like the likes of Robbo and stuff maybe would have tried to put in some hard challenges and stuff. But it just happens that Xhaka, he gets tackled by Konate and the ball goes out for a throw. And I think that maybe was the first incident that maybe wound him up a little bit. And then Trent, you know, has that little bit of scuffle or whatever. And before you know it, it's like, okay, there is some fight in this team. There is, you know, we have been embarrassed, but we're going to stand up for ourselves here. And even if we lose the game, we're not going to be rolled over. You know, we're not going to be embarrassed. We're actually going to, if anything, just put a foot in. You know, just make Arsenal aware that this, you don't come here and take 3 points without feeling the heat, you know, and maybe getting a few bad challenges or what.
Well, if it got Evan out of his seat, it must have done the job, because Evan has admitted quietly, sheepishly. I don't think none of you lot admitted, but Evan said he got a bit. Oh,
got the blood flowing a little bit at 8:30 in the morning.
But it's the spark we needed to get the crowd on side. You know, we always talk about the power of Anfield or what have you, but and I kind of dislike it when I think Fabinho come out earlier in the week and talking about, oh, we've played well at Anfield this season and the crowd and this and that, and I'm a bit like, yeah, but you need to give back as well. Yes. You know, you need to give the crowd something to fight for and to cheer for and to rally themselves up for. It is a two-way street, like Evan says, but the way this season's gone, I think it's on the players to really get the crowd going, and that's how it happened. And we started to play a little bit. We started to get the ball forward and get closer to the 18-yard box and started making things happen. It wasn't pretty, it wasn't fluid, but at least we were, you know, closer to their goal, and you know, the ball was in the right areas where, you know, one pass away or, you know, a better touch, a better bit of link up, and we were in on goal. And seemingly that means we get the chance and the goal right before, I think it was the 41st minute, right before half time, which is the perfect response really to that kind of start to the game, getting a goal right before half time. And you can go into that half time then thinking, all right, we can change a few things and come out and we're still in this. despite, you know, not being the better team for the best part of it.
It was mad, Steve, because apart from that, not apart, but if you take away that opening 25, 20 minutes, we scored a goal. We could have very easily gone in 2-2 at halftime. And I don't know how we would have been 2-2. It would have been like sort of the same questions being asked, how the hell did we draw against Chelsea? But nevertheless, we showed fighting spirit, attitude, desire, hunger, all of the stuff, as I said, that should be a given, but hasn't been a given this season. So there is something to work there. The attitude, the desire, the playing for Klopp question, I think we can put that to bed, if nothing else, because there was definitely desire and passion for the manager. Mohamed Salah gets a goal. Again, Curtis Jones plays a pivotal role in it. The timing of the pass, little flick to Jota, intelligent pullback, Henderson, you know. And then Henderson misses a chance where Trent again finds Jota at the far post. We could have easily been 2-2 after a disastrous opening where you even told us beforehand that the crowd was so close to booing us off.
Yeah, a couple of things to talk about there. You also remember Andy Robbo went clean through down the left-hand side and drew one across. It's not beyond the realms of possibility. We could have been in front at half-time. See, I don't think there's an issue whether they played for Klopp or not. I don't see that as an issue. I think Klopp's
But the question has been raised.
Yeah, it has. Rightly or wrongly, it's been raised, and I think today goes a long way to answering that. The crowd reaction that spared the players on was born out of sheer frustration. So if it's not getting themselves up to shout at the players to get a rise from the players, this giving it back to the crowd type of thing, it's different today. Because that was the first time some of my friends and people I worked with were in the ground. That was going to be the first time at half-time a Klopp team gets booed off at Anfield. That's not happened before. The catalyst moment with Xhaka gave them a reason to vent their frustration somewhere else.
Yeah.
To be angry, to be vocal. And thankfully it sparked a rise from everybody on the pitch. If I'm Klopp at half-time when they come in, I'm starting fights in that changing room because I want them to go out with the same fire, the same energy, the same passion. If that half had gone on for another 10 minutes, there'd have been a fight. There'd have been a free-for-all in the middle of the pitch somewhere because both teams were getting fired up. Half-time comes at completely the wrong time for Liverpool because they were building up a head of steam. They were focused. They were energetic. They were lively. They were into everything. They were the bullying Liverpool team of old that says we're going to steamroller you because if you get on top of your game and from a physical nature, big, strong, physical lads that can play football will always be technical lads that aren't physical that can play football because you get the overpowering elements. We were bullying them. Thankfully, we managed to resurrect that in the second half, but it was really weird because years ago, when I was a manager, one of my lads absolutely smashed the centre-half over the advertising board and nearly got sent off for it. And he came running past the dugout and I was saying to him, what did you do that for? And he said, because we effing needed it. As a team, we effing needed that. And he was proper angry. And that's exactly what happened amongst the Liverpool players. But it transcended itself from the stands onto the pitch. And they rose to meet the crescendo noise and the intensity and the passion within the ground. So Arsenal don't learn. The last time they came to Anfield, Arteta upset the crowd and they got punished for it. This time they came to Anfield, Xhaka upset the crowd and they should have been punished more than they were. It's about learning lessons, isn't it? And you don't come to Liverpool, as Gary Neville said, if the crowd are asleep, leave them there.
Let sleeping dogs lay.
Don't wake them up, and that's exactly what they did.
They did all right up to that point. Every time we got a chance, they just faked an injury. I actually thought they would be really smart.
So we're going to get into sort of the sportsmanship, the dark hearts and all of that business. We're going to get into that as well. But another incident apparently took place. I don't remember at the time and everything, but everyone's talking about it and everything. There's a linesman. If someone in the chat could tell me what his name was, I can't pronounce it, so I don't want to butcher it. He decides, apparently, Evan, to play the hard man as an official that's out there to protect the players. he reverses his role in terms of being an official that's out there to initially protect the player's safety at all times. He tries to endanger the safety of one of our players by, to me, on the replays, looks like a very, very forcible attempt at an elbow straight into his neck stroke chin area. Did you see it? I mean, what on earth was
Well,
that?
definitely didn't see it live. It's the broadcast just didn't show it. But I actually didn't see it until like the 60th minute of the second half. It was retweeted onto my timeline, and then I saw it. And my first thought is that guy has probably refereed his last Premier League game. That is, if it is what it appears to be, and obviously there's going to be an investigation, and there's going to be this, and there's going to be that. There's going to be all this tiffle taffle into what went down and what was said and whatever. But if it is what it appears to be, he's refereed his last Premier League game, and you absolutely can't do that. Mitrovic was given a hefty ban, I believe, for a push on the referee, a slight push on the referee. So it'll be interesting to see what happens here. And I had someone tell me, that I had someone tell me, oh, that referee could get banned for however many games. Mitrovic was banned, and I had to remind this person, we hold referees to a higher emotional standard than players, hence why they're in charge of the game in the first place. So these referees are held to a higher standard. And I did see what I did see from Mr. Sinclair here is I did see Robbo and him having exchanges the entire first half on that side. Robbo and him were chirping at each other, absolutely. Whether Robbo remembers him from that game versus Spurs, whether there's some leftover resentment there, I'm not quite sure. There was definitely some fresh resentment because, like I said, I remember Robbo having a go at him at least 3 times during the first half. So obviously, Robertson had some questions about some first half calls because he goes over there to talk to him. But just in terms of what the repercussions might be, it's difficult. I can't remember, at least in Premier League history, a referee acting out like this. So there isn't really a precedent, is there? We don't really have a barometer to go by in terms of what the punishment might be.
Yeah, it was a bit of a strange, weird one, but again, it helped us, Cav, because whatever Xhaka done, whatever the linesman done, whatever happened, we'll take it because it was the best halftime speech we could have possibly hoped for because we were a different animal. Arteta talked about coming to the jungle. He referred to coming to Anfield as coming to the jungle, and sometimes, and in previous times, he's spoken about things happen there you can't control. And I was speaking to a couple of Arsenal guys that I'm unfortunately in group WhatsApp with, and they was like, "Oh, Grizz, calm down. We didn't come out in the second half. We didn't want to play." And I went, "No, we didn't let you play in that second half. We didn't let you come out in the second half." Because that second half, Cav, without any changes, or am I wrong? Hold on. I don't think we made any substitutions. No, we didn't. No. Because without making any changes even in the first 15 minutes, there was a total different tempo. That word again, intensity to our game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, completely different start to what we got in the first half. We built up a bit of, obviously getting the goal on the 41st minute. Built up a bit of momentum, and we just built on that in the second half, and we come out of the blocks and we started really well. We were managing to sort of win the ball back higher up the pitch, and you could kind of see the defenders get more and more confident and push further and further up. At times they were traveling a bit forward, which I didn't like, but that's fine. Jesus is very good at receiving the ball and holding it up, and he's obviously got trickery in. And once or twice, he did manage to sort of worm his way out of situations and stuff.
When he stayed on his feet.
Yeah. And they do have the outlet in Saka and in Martinelli, who were coming back, all game. They made sure that the wingers came back and Jesus, and they made sure they have 11 men behind the ball at all times. They clearly didn't want to, get caught out in transition by Liverpool. So they were working hard, but ultimately we were managing to sort of win the first ball and then the second balls and just keep them pinned in. And that's what Liverpool have been so good at for so long. We're able to sustain attacks then. And I think it was said in commentary in the first half, the Liverpool of old, they'll get a chance and you defend it, and then they get a second chance, and then they get a shot at goal, and before you know it, you're just under the cosh. And Liverpool haven't really been able to do that a whole lot this season, but they were able to do it in that second half. And Arsenal really then just retreated, and I think they really started to feel that this wasn't a game that they were just going to cruise in, you know, and come and get 3 points. Actually, they really needed to have their backs against the wall. And I think everybody, to a man, really played their part in that. We'll talk about Trent, and I think Evan touched upon his positioning. But him in particular, you know, in the first half, I couldn't quite work out what we're trying to do with him in midfield. And I couldn't quite work out, Konate goes out to Martinelli, but then that leaves so much space or whatever. But actually in the second half, that freedom that he was given in attack seemed to start to work, you know, and it seemed to find spaces where he would influence the game. So yeah, we started really well. And we built on it, and then things start to happen. You start to see Fabinho winning challenges again and looking like the Fabinho of old. You start to see Henderson's energy coming back in and making them overlap runs and stuff. Salah's getting on the ball more and picking his head up and what have you. So all them old things that you would usually attribute to Liverpool start to happen again, and it really is born out of confidence.
It's Manda says, God, let's not speak about the pen, or we'd have to bring the pen in the first game. He's right. I mean, people can talk about sort of the dubious nature of it, or I don't know. Who am I coming to? Steve, the penalty. We get a penalty. Was it a penalty in your eyes? Jota does well. And then describe things from there.
Well, it's a bit of a melee in the box, isn't it? Jota's the first one to react to a loose ball. And he's trying to sort of go around from right to left around the Arsenal defence, and Holding just makes an absolute hash of his challenge. There's one in the back, and then he uses his legs to bring him down. I don't think anybody could argue it wasn't a penalty. A very, very poor timed challenge by the Arsenal defender. Probably someone we would look to target during the game as well, because not the usual centre-back and wouldn't be the first time he's been a bit rash. But it's a penalty, you can't do that. He's just got to stay on his feet. If Jota scores from there, he's done particularly well, because there's a lot of people in front of the goal, because it comes from a set piece. So 100% a penalty. And then obviously, just going to ask you two guys, just to show our hands, did you think Salah was going to score that when he placed the ball on the spot? Because I didn't have too much confidence in that, to be honest with you. I don't like the runner. I really don't like the runner.
The run-up is...
Sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say, I mean, the run-up's been contentious for so long. The technique has been contentious for so long. Even when he had only missed once before in his first few months at the club, people were saying, that run-up is so dodgy. I never feel comfortable. And what I was going to say is, listen, 2 misses in a row and a failure to hit the target each time. I would like to open the conversation about someone else stepping up. Is that realistic? Maybe not. Maybe this is just something in his contract. I take the penalty.
No. Because you asked that question, and I think Klopp answered your question or your thoughts, or may help with your thoughts or going forward, because he said that is something we will talk about, but not right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely not. It's low on your priority list of conversations. As a coach, you want to talk about tactical things. You want to talk about individual mistakes or things like that. But I remember Hazard had that phenomenal technique. One of the pioneers of the look the goalkeeper in the eyes until the last second technique. Wait for him to lean, pass it the other direction, and it felt like Hazard would never miss. And then he did miss twice in a row for Chelsea, and then he just stopped taking pens. So we're at a similar place with a player of a similar caliber who has had a similar penalty success rate, and it's definitely time to open the conversation, because as we've known for quite a while, there are other good takers of the penalty in the squad, and we saw that in the domestic cup final last season. So yeah, definitely time to open the conversation. Not much to play for at this point, is there? But I'm glad you. I'm glad you opened the conversation, Steve, because it's definitely a conversation we need to have.
I'm going one step further, guys, and I'm going to be the first one to say I don't want Mohamed Salah taking the penalties anymore. And I'm going to put forward a couple of names, and then you give me a couple of names, and we can decide on one. I think the idea of Gakpo, if he's on the pitch, is a fantastic idea. Me personally, I think he's one of the best technical strikers of the ball in our league, in our team. We haven't seen much of it yet. I know we saw it against Man United with that strike, but trust me, I've seen enough of him at his previous club to know he's that. I have doubted his other qualities, but I don't doubt his striking the ball quality. Or Fabinho. Now, we know Fabinho scored for Monaco. I don't think he missed for Monaco. He missed his one in his first ever debut for us in a preseason friendly, and I don't think he's missed since the ones he's been asked to take. Also, a very strong shout in there is Trent Alexander-Arnold. What do you think, guys? Cav?
Well, do you know one thing that you want your penalty taker to have is a cool mind? And Trent plays the game half asleep, so I think he'll deal with it perfectly fine.
No pressure.
Yeah, he's no pressure. He just plays the game with no pressure. At times, I want him to feel the pressure, but hey, yeah, I agree with those options. I mean, my choice would be Fabinho because he's always tucked them away pretty calmly, and he picks different corners, and he doesn't overdo it with his technique, but he might not be here beyond this season, so I'm not sure if he'd be the best choice. I do agree with Gakpo, though, and just as a bit of a side note, did we notice that he was on corner duty again today? Sorry, for the first time today instead of Trent and Robertson. And his deliveries were seemingly quite good. Now, I'm not sure if that's something to do with the defensive part, if you've got one of your forwards taking it and maybe leave your a Robbo back or a Trent.
Yeah, but he's 6'3", man.
Yeah, but then also the thing that you have with it is if the ball comes back out, you maybe want to recycle it back to Trent because then he can put another ball in. So, and also our deliveries, the deliveries haven't been too bad from Trent. We're just not connecting with them. And I would put that more down to the guys attacking the ball. But let's face it, we've just not been that good at set pieces in recent games. So why not mix it up? And Gakpo's got good technique as he's shown today. So yeah, I would like to keep him on corner duty if he's playing. I would be happy with him taking penalties. And just on the Salah thing, I'd want him nowhere near any set piece, to be honest with you, let alone penalties. I don't know why he stands over free kicks. I've never seen him be good at a free kick. Yet he still insists on taking the odd one.
Yeah, I was about to say, Kat, the free kick thing blows my mind because maybe has he scored one for Egypt or something? Because whenever I get frustrated at the sight of him there standing next to dead ball specialist, that is Trent Alexander-Arnold. On Gakpo taking corners, though, he comes to Liverpool as a guy with a reputation of not being a dead ball specialist, but being good at crossing the ball. Like if you go and look at a lot of his assists in the Eredivisie, it's a lot of crosses into the box from like an inverted left wing position. So perhaps it makes sense that he takes over some of the corner taking.
He's got this technique. He's got this technique where he's on the left, he comes inside, then he kind of just side foot, he whips it in. Not whips it in, just kind of chips it in, but with the side foot, almost like a
it's like a scoop. Yeah, it's like a scoop. It's a really impressive technique. I'm glad we're having the conversation about penalty taking because it should never be something that's set in stone. We should never absolutely be married to the idea that Salah has to take every single one.
And I think inadvertently it's taken 2 misses, but I think the conversation will be had now because we know, we know Jurgen Klopp watches RedFellas on a Sunday night. So he'll know that Steve has opened up the conversation.
I would go with Fab. I would go with Fabinho.
Yeah, probably.
A couple of goals from penalties might give the guy the confidence boost he needs to sort of resurrect certain other elements of his game as well. There's nothing like scoring a winner in a game to give you a lift if it turns out to be that. Interesting that someone's mentioned Trent. I think because Trent is very, very languid in his style, and that's not a criticism, he is. How seriously does he take things like that? Sometimes they're the difference between winning and losing games or not getting the result you want. I think Fabinho is such a clean striker of a football and his record speaks for itself. And I think anything you can do to give that guy a lift, because I know there's a bit of a media campaign and a fans campaign to sell him. I don't think we can afford to shift that many centre midfielders. So I think we will have a reason. And if he's on penalty duty when he's playing, I, like you guys, don't want to see Mo taking penalties again.
What about Verge? I know we've not really seen it. Used to be quite a good free kick taker.
I wouldn't be against it.
I mean, I'm not really against anything, but I generally think there's something to be said about like it's going to be an offensive player that takes over the duties, if anything, because these things are so heavily biased towards those things, and these guys have goal like incentives placed into their contracts. Obviously, Mo has, prior to missing versus Bournemouth, he has a phenomenal conversion rate for us, but it's also a question. It's also him being our highest paid player, having all sorts of performance and goal related bonuses into this contract. He might feel entitled to this, and Liverpool might feel they owe it to let him, hit these incentives if we're to put them in the contract. I'm not saying it's the be all end all of the discussion, these things, but I do think it carries some weight in the decision of who steps up.
I think it shouldn't carry any weight anymore, because look, I know it's a simplistic way of saying it, but that's 4 points. That's 4 points dropped with the 2 penalties. So that's fine. He shouldn't be, for me, as far as I'm concerned. I mean, look, we've discussed the technique and everything before, so let's not get into that too much. But I think we're all quite unanimous, and I wouldn't call any of us reactionary and sort of, oh, he's missed it, and that's why I think we've been sort of insinuating to have a conversation a few months, or last maybe 10 penalties. Just a couple of super chats before we get into the most exciting part of the game, the final 10-15 minutes. Mike Dash says, I got 200 downloads on the Liverpool Reddit in the summer for suggesting Trent at right centre midfield. His work centrally today proves it where it should be. What an amazing segue, hey people? I mean, how does life work sometimes on this show? It's magnificent. People think we have this pre-planned, magnificently organized, but it's just natural. I love it. Darwin and son of Grizz Teta says, Grizenstein, why you hate Arsenal? I want a refund. I don't hate your club. In fact, we should pay tribute and credit Arsenal for their behavior around the memorial of the 97. They were impeccably behaved. The manager, the fans for the minute silence, everything was brilliant. I don't hate exactly, absolutely. And I don't hate your team or club. I hate us losing. There's a difference. I hate us being embarrassed. I didn't want to be embarrassed out there. What did you make of these substitutions, lads? Curtis Jones, Jota, and Fabinho come off for Nunes. Sorry, for... What am I going with this? Bobby, Jota, Bobby, Nunes, and Thiago. Let's start again. Bobby, Nunes, and Thiago come on for Jones, Jota, and Fabinho.
Can I go with the Thiago one? That was a strange one to me because for 10 minutes when Thiago came on, we lost our way. The intensity dropped off a little bit because he wanted to get the ball in his feet, have a look up, and shift it around. And that kind of wasn't what we were doing. We were building up a head of steam through quick, intensive play. He's a wonderful, wonderful footballer. The last thing we needed was for someone to put their foot in it and start looking for things and trying to look for openings. We had Arsenal on the back foot because of our intensity, because of how aggressive we were. And I think when I said at the start, when we talked about the team, I think Curtis Jones can count himself a little unlucky to come off. It was a tactical change for a different player. But I felt for 10 minutes we had to readjust completely to Thiago coming on the pitch because he does things differently. It's not a criticism. That wasn't where our strength was at that time during the game for me.
I felt that, the intensity drop off that you noticed was sort of, now all of a sudden we're retaining possession and sustaining a siege because Thiago's on the pitch, meaning there's less 50-50s to throw yourself into, less spicy moments within the game. And as a result, we create a siege of their box and inevitably create chances, the XG spikes, and, Thiago's influence allows us to cool the temperature of the game down, because at a certain point you want to turn that dominance, that pressure that you're exerting on them in 50-50s and challenges into some controlled possession, because that's both sides of the coin. I think Liverpool have struggled to do what you said there, Steve. They struggled to raise the intensity in the midfield, throw themselves into challenges. The reaction we got from the Xhaka incident, we've struggled to be galvanized in that way. But at the same time, we've also struggled to have what Thiago brings for us, which is retention of the ball, press resistance, a quick and efficient first phase. So although it lowers the temperature of an intriguing contest, you need both of those things to sustain your superiority. And if you look at the match momentum, Thiago comes into the game and our XG spikes, our match momentum spikes. Everybody starts passing the ball much more efficiently. Yeah, we're making less tackles, but that's due to a lack of necessity, in my
But
opinion.
I wouldn't. Me personally, I wouldn't accredit that all to Thiago. I would accredit that to a lot to do with Bobby Firmino's introduction as well.
Mm-hmm.
He plays that role so intelligently that that it just automatically comes to him as second nature. In fact, the equalizer comes from him winning the ball in that kind of scenario. I'm in the middle of both of your takes on the Thiago situation. I'm literally in the middle, actually, because I was listening to Steve and I understand what Steve was saying, and I was agreeing with a lot of what he was saying. And I was listening to you and I was agreeing with a lot of what you were saying. I think Thiago had the right effect, but his execution of what he was trying to do was a bit rusty. I think his passes were a bit wayward. He lost possession a few times, and the crowd kind of just sort of lost that momentum for a little while. But then he found his range, and it definitely helped create what you're suggesting, the siege that pretty much caused the goal, Cav. And again, it was patient play, but it was intense, and it was the old Liverpool, what we've discussed in terms of making them not letting them out of their penalty area, basically.
Yeah, basically that. And just quickly on the Thiago point, it's not what he has been for us, but I thought him coming in would have been that luxury player whereby most games we would pin teams back and we would struggle to break down a low block. And actually that's where you want a Thiago, because he's so brilliantly creative and he'll find passes and little bits of pick up players' movements that nobody else is seeing. So I thought actually it was a perfect time to bring him into the game, because as Evan says, the momentum was in our favour. And he was that extra little bit of brilliance that I thought we needed. And he comes on with Núñez, who again is another threat. Jota looked like he was tiring slightly. So I thought the changes were really positive. Probably pre-planned because they were returning from injuries and fitness and what have you, but they're good guys to bring on at that point in the game. The goal comes through just brilliance from Trent. Like, let's say it is. And I love how it was on Zinchenko as well, because he comes in as like a Premier League winning player along with Jesus from Man City, and it's like he is one of the important guys in that squad that sort of made him have this title charge, because he's brought that experience, he's brought that know-how, he's been through it and he's come out with success on the other side, and then he's the man that gets nutmegged from Trent, and then Trent gets his head up and puts it into the far post. Again, if any man to sort of stick that goal away, you'd pick Bobby, wouldn't you? It's probably, I know we've got Spurs at home at some point in this season, but it is probably the biggest game of Anfield for the remainder of the season, and he's obviously on his farewell tour now, and it's Arsenal, which he scored. I think that's his 10th goal against them. It all just kind of was written in the stars that he would come on and have that impact, and it would be him to get the goal. And it was brilliant all round, and it was much deserved, much deserved, because we dominated most of that second half. I think Arsenal really felt under pressure and probably felt lucky that they come away from the game with a point. So brilliant from Trent, and like I say, Bobby to get it is better, no better.
That gentleman's comment, forgive me, I can't remember what the name was, who spoke about sort of the Trent position. I guess come to Evan to start off with. It was interesting, and as Cav said earlier, in the first half it was more confusing than interesting. But as the game wore on, and as we realized that we have some form of control in the game, it became interesting, Evan. And the reason it became interesting is pretty much we ended up mirroring what Man City and today Arsenal are trying to bring to the Premier League in terms of this type of formation, where one of the fullbacks is inverted into a centre back, making it three centre backs, and one of the fullbacks is inverted into the midfield position, making it a 3-2 type formation from the back in a build-up phase. Did you like it? Basically, could you see it working, making it sense? Because we know we've discussed the Trent to midfield situation, and you said something while we were chatting off air in terms of you think this is all. I can't remember who said it. I'm sorry, forgive me, whoever said it. I'll give you flowers later. But you said that this is the closest that you think that we'll get to something like that.
Yeah, I mean, just based on the average positions there, you could see Robertson's a much more out-and-out fullback, just in terms of where he is versus where Trent is, who's more or less level with Henderson on the right side of central midfield. In terms of average positions for Trent, this isn't really anything new. You can go through match reports of last season on this website, whoscored.com, and you can see average positions where he's tucked in that triangle with Henderson, Salah, and they're all interchanging to try and find an opening through a deep block. But like you said, Grizz, what was a standout today was in that first phase. Trent was essentially playing as perhaps not really a center back. I'd say more like a defensive midfielder. It wasn't particularly effective in the first half. We got to see a little bit more of it in the second half. I think it was a response to try to be not so limited, to try probing down the wide areas. Absolutely teams have been clued up into how we try to go around the press, around deep blocks. I'm not really sure how I feel about it. It's such a small sample size. I mean, this is a new tweak from Klopp. But Trent taking up central positions in the final third is not really anything too new. We've seen that before. But in this first phase, just trying to build out from the back, just trying to get an extra bit of technical quality there, it was new. And I don't think we saw enough of that specific central Trent to say if it works or not. We've seen Trent centrally interchanging with Henderson for well over a year and a half, 2 years now. But in terms of that first phase, it's hard to gauge how successful that will be going forward, or if we'll persevere with it, because it's about as close as, like I said, Trent in midfield as you're going to get. And a lot of people are asking for that. A lot of people see that as the next evolution of the Klopp team, and next evolution of Trent. How do we protect him? How do we, maximize what he's best at? It's by moving him into midfield. On the offensive end, I think that's kind of pointless, moving Trent into midfield, because he occupies midfield positions already in the final third, and he puts in wonderful passes, wonderful crosses all over that right-hand central side. Whether people want Trent in midfield in the first phase is an entirely different conversation, and one that I don't think we have enough evidence to really have at this point. We definitely need to see more of it.
Anybody want to weigh in on the Trent debate before I want to speak about and pick out a man of the match?
It's actually wild to think that we could try that exercise today in a game against Arsenal. We've never done it before. Kind of looking at what we're trying to do at the moment is find anything that makes some form of pattern of play, some form of cohesive threat whilst being able to defend work, because in recent weeks we could all say it hasn't. To roll that out today against Arsenal at Anfield for the first time is really it's either really brave, or it smacks of a little bit of we need to try to do something differently. We've seen John Stones do it for City from a centre back position, from the third centre back position, and sit alongside Rodri. Just interesting for me today that it comes out today, a week after we play City. Not a lot of time to work on that. I think that's where the confusion in the first half comes from. But when he's inverted, he's a threat. He's absolutely a threat. He belted one over the crossbar from about 25 yards out, and that ball was moving. That's the guy you want in those positions, because we don't get shots off from distance.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So maybe it's worth persevering with it. What is interesting is Henderson has not done what you would typically expect him to do per se during the game, which is you'd expect 66 and 14 to be in opposite positions there, because you would expect Henderson to be covering the space behind Trent when he becomes inverted. But Konate had an absolute monster of a game today, and as you can see, basically covered the final third of that side of the pitch all by himself with distinguished performance today in that position.
Yeah, I think that's the end of the man of the match debate, because I think we all agree Konate on that 5 role was just a monster, Cav. I think there was someone, I can't remember who it was, asked me on Twitter, would you say he's the #1 centre back, the first name on the Liverpool team sheet right now? For me, he is, Cav.
Yeah, because he's been the one man that's kind of stood out during these poor performances. He's still, other than Alisson, obviously, he's still put in good performances himself. I think when he first came to the club, one of the criticisms about him was that he sort of gets drawn into midfield by following his man, and that leaves space in behind. There's been a little bit of that in his recent performances, but aside from that happening once or twice and being caught out, he's actually put in some pretty stellar performances. You know, you can't beat him for pace or height or strength. You know, he actually recognised that Trent was having a pretty torrid time against Martinelli one-on-one, and he came over to help him out. Then on occasion, he found himself as the one, you know, the guy one-on-one with Martinelli and having to defend him, and he did perfectly. You know, muscled him off the ball or just put in a clean challenge, come away with the ball and just played it simply. He was everywhere, and once we started to build that confidence and we pushed higher up the pitch and we were pegging Arsenal back, he became just, I won't say a one-man sort of wrecking machine, but it almost felt like that, where it was like, okay, stick anything, stick it into the channels, stick it in the air, put it into Jesus' feet. If it's anywhere near Konate and he's the man engaging with Arsenal, he'll come out on top. And he really just built on his performance, and he just become fantastic, let's face it. And I would say I would pick him ahead of Virgil at this point in time. Yeah, he's the guy that I have the most confidence in. I think in the first half, he struggled a little bit with Trent's positioning. I think Trent was coming in to try and receive the ball off of Alisson and the centre backs, and it left no option for Konate to play that ball out wide, which was what he would traditionally play when he gets that ball. He would look for Trent and just play it out wide, and Trent's not there because he's now the guy receiving the ball. So I think at times he tried to play it into Salah and it looked very disjointed or what have you, but it's difficult for him because that position from Trent's so new that he has to learn where he needs to be, and maybe he needs to bring the ball out at his feet a bit more and maybe drive into that space and then pick out a pass or what have you. But yeah, he was brilliant, and he could have been the hero today if he decided not to chest it.
Ev, I'm trying to work out. We tried to work out what he tried to do in that last kick of the game. Pretty much before that, Ramsdale, who's an absolute weirdo, Bilal. Shout out Bilal, the Arsenal fan who helps me out on a few shows. Suggested that that's Ramsdale away from home. Like Ramsdale is actually a dodgy keeper at home, but away from home, he's weirdly mad. Like he thrives on the gladiatorial type thing where he's the main event and he's everyone's faces and everyone hates him, but he's the villain because he made a couple of magnificent saves, one from Nunes, one from Salah, and one from Konate, but he shouldn't have had any chance with a Konate one.
No, definitely not. It's I think the finish from Nunez is kind of lame. I think it's a save he should make. The Salah one is incredible. That for me is the pick of the bunch. The Konate one is great because he's there in the right place at the right time, but it doesn't ask too much of him because of course Konate is as tame as a 3-yard finish can get, really. I think it's just one of those weird things for Ibu where he's committed to like diving, like he thinks he's gonna have to use his head. He's committed to the diving header, realizes that's not quite right, and by the time it's too late, he can't use his feet anymore. So he kind of has to like awkwardly adjust. I think it just comes in at an awkward height, and he's already committed to going one way, and that kind of just results in the chest. I don't think when when he sees the ball traveling into the box and realizes he could get on the end of this knockdown from Nunez, I don't think he's thinking, I'm going to chest this in. You know what I mean? It's just one of those things where it just happens. It's just bouncing a weird way, and he commits to a certain way of going at it, and it was the wrong way to go about it. But the guy's got plenty of credit in the bank. We're not expecting him to score goals. He should have absolutely buried that. But then again, Mohamed Salah missed a penalty. Darwin Nunez, missed a one-on-one. Yeah, we're absolutely looking at other areas where the game could have been won before we even think about criticizing Ibu Konate.
We're going to end it right now, but just as we were mentioning Virgil van Dijk in terms of, Konate being the number one choice in our opinion, or my opinion anyway, and I got your opinion. Virgil van Dijk has just posted something on Instagram, and obviously there's been doubts about his commitment, and does he look in the mood, and is he having arguments with Klopp, and is he unhappy with the setup and the system? Well, Virgil van Dijk said crazy game, and then he's done one of those emojis. You guys will know more what it means, but it means something crazy. Roller coaster season for sure. This is not the form that we are used to, both individually and collectively. So we must stick together. And then he does the emoji. We know what that means. With hard work, we all believe we can get back to creating more special moments together. This team will never give up. Hashtag you will never walk alone. Brilliant post suggesting that they're in this together. All the chitter chatter about they're not in this together, and there's frictions and people giving up and looking for ways out or excuses. We can forgive them. We can forgive them because they're human. As I said in the morning, I said, Jurgen Klopp gives me an indication of being ruthless in the summer. Everything that I'm hearing from him and from others and around the club suggests that there will be significant changes in and around the club. We know behind the scenes there's been changes. We anticipate changes on the pitch, on the playing side of things. And Jurgen Klopp, I think in his recent interviews, has also hinted at admitting he's made mistakes, which is fine. The first point of recovery is to admit something. And he's admitted, I think he's made mistakes. Just one super chat to finish off on, which possibly could be to do with one of the questions that he may have to address and answer. Dinesh says, I don't think Fabinho is finished. He just needs time out and recharge his batteries. We need a cover for Fabinho next season. Give him a break. Yeah, look, my opinion on that is fairly straightforward. I do think we should replace Fabinho as a starting number 6. But as Steve says, with regards to Fabinho, I think he was referring to, we can't move out players. We've already got players moving out, and we already need to bring in 3 players. So, yeah, it's a lot to do. And therefore, maybe he gets another stay of execution from that aspect.
I think giving Curtis Jones the contract was very telling, because that protects the investment and also is a clear indicator that the bodies that are moving out will be the ones that have already told us they're going, I think, in midfield. I think if you read between the lines, it's Jones's make or break season next year. They just protected the investment, and I don't see 5 midfielders going or 4 midfielders going. I think there'll be 2, 3.
It's not practical. It's not practical, yeah. United Devil says, Grizz, stay for another hour. Interesting. Man United fan asking me to stay another hour while actually we're praising Liverpool today. I can understand if we were talking rubbish and we've lost, but really? You want us to carry on semi-glorifying our comeback in the second half? But appreciate the support as always. Guys, thank you very much for listening to us go on about Liverpool and Arsenal. Fair play to Arsenal. I don't know where it leaves the title race. I haven't had time to comprehend and look into it and think about it from their aspect. From our aspect, we needed pride. We needed feel-good factor. We have some feel-good factor. I believe top 4 is finished. It's done. But we need some positivity to end the season. We hope to continue to bring that positivity. If they bring us the positivity, we hope to have a go at them. If they really piss us off, then we'll be pissed off and we'll show our pissed off sides. But always Appreciate the love and support. Smash the like button if you haven't already. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Evan, Steve, Cav, thank you very much, guys, as well. I'm looking for the video button so I can say good night. Arrivederci. Ciao. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.